Hello developers, welcome to my video series on Microsoft Flight Simulator add-on workflow. Today I'm going to show you how to Vertex paint in Blender so you can use that feature on your models. Now I've assumed that you have read the part in the SDK about Vertex colors and Vertex alphas. If not, it's in the 3D Max plugin material section here. You can see that in this section. So the vertex painting is down here, and the information that we're going to discuss is this. This is a supplemental video on Blender tips and tricks, and it's not part of my add-on workflow videos directly. It's an advanced feature and a Blender skill that you should learn. You can further manipulate the main textures and detailed textures in the MFS Material Parameters panel to show only parts of the textures of your mesh. However, you can mask out parts of that texture with the use of vertex painting. But first, a bit on how we are able to show the vertex colors and vertex alpha in Blender. I've said numerous times that don't manipulate the nodes directly and don't use the surface panel. Well, now I'm going to break that rule. And just remember, you'll need to undo any of these node manipulations when you're done vertex painting and before you export your model. Here's how things work. The MSFS material panel in the material section is there to manipulate the MSFS underscore custom properties that the ASOBO exporter needs to build and export the materials in your model. You can find those at the bottom under custom properties. Anything with the MSFS underscore is basically a variable that the exporter uses. The MSFS, that's tough to say, Material Parameters panel pushes these values to the shader nodes. So all these nodes here. And it'll show you a representation of how the material will look in the sim. The key here is it's only a representation from the Blender render program. You can add nodes to the ASOBO shader framework, but since the exporter doesn't know anything about these new nodes and its data, the exporter will not export that data. The sim will show the materials based on the ASOBO shader node data that it recognizes. The data travels in one direction, from the MSFS material parameters to the MSFS underscore custom properties, then to the shader nodes, and finally to the Blender rendering program. And what we'll do in the vertex painting is to add nodes so you can see the vertex colors and vertex alpha in Blender as colors. These nodes we add are not recognized by the ASOBO exporter. However, the underlying vertex data will be. So the vertex color node that ASOBO has added is this one here. And we're going to add information to the color output and alpha output. The ASOBO vertex color node will use the vertex color alpha in the export. The vertex color alpha is basically hidden from direct viewing. We have to fake Blender out and show these vertex colors and the alpha values as RGB colors. And we do that by adding 4 nodes. 1 color separator and 2 color combiners and a BSDF node. The second vertex alpha color combiner node will be set to HSV. So we'll add a separate, we'll add a color combiner, We'll add a second color combiner. We can set that to HSV, and then we will add a BSDF, principled BSDF node. So these are the nodes we need. There's going to be two data paths. Our first data path is from the vertex color, and the second data path will be to the vertex alpha. We can combine the other three here, and this color output will go to the base color input. So you basically just connect everything as I've shown here. Now this example will use the Microsoft Flight Simulator material windshield. So I'm going to use the windshield material as it uses both the vertex color and vertex alpha in manipulating all the textures. Most other materials just use the vertex alpha. And from the SDK, the vertex color red channel affects the scratches. So here the vertex color red affects the scratches. The vertex color B affects the fingerprints. And the vertex color G affects the opacity applied to the secondary detail texture. This is a bit confusing, but that's what it does. The vertex alpha affects the icing, so the alpha will affect the icing effect. Now we're going to use the ASOBO textures that they've been using for the windshield to show ice, but I've modified them. I've added letters to them for the detailed map, the scratches, icing, fingerprints, red channel, scratching, icing, fingerprints, G, so is green, scratches, icing, fingerprints, blue. So I've got letters on these, I've got letters on the secondary alpha, and I've got letters on the frost. So you can actually see the letters appear and disappear when we enter them into the sim. So let's export this and see how it looks in the sim without making any changes to the vertex colors. Okay, I've exported my test plane here, and then I've also built it in the sim and started the sim, and this is what we get. So I've added all those letters to my textures so you can actually see all of that information. So we've got an overlap of the secondary details, alpha, and all of the different channels for the scratches, icing, fingerprints. And let's add some icing here. And you'll see that I've got my texture for the frost normal, etc. So we can ice up our windshield and things change. You'll notice that the letter G, so SIFG channel is here for the icing mask. So everything seems to work, but we've got all these fingerprints and scratches, and I've got complete icing over the windshield. What if you have some sort of windshield defroster? What am I going to do with that? So you could only have one part of the windshield ice up, and we can fix all the scratches, too many scratches, not enough scratches, with Vertex painting. So we'll go back into Blender. We'll select my windshield, and we'll do some Vertex painting. And how we'll do that is with the nodes, and we'll connect the output of our Vertex BSDF node to the surface input is that we get a change to how the windshield appears in Blender. So we've connected up the vertex color path. In the ASOBO exporter, the vertex color output is not really connected to anything. It's only connected to my new node setup. So we're going to do some painting, and we have to ensure that first we're in shader viewport setting and not solid. So the viewport shading, and you're not, so you can actually see it. And its color is black. But we're not in vertex painting mode at the moment. From the discussion above, the nodes are now showing the windshield with a color, quote unquote. It's black. You want to go into vertex paint mode, we select vertex paint. So it adds a color attribute to the mesh. If we look on the mesh, we now have a color attribute associated with the windshield mesh. We'll go back into the material. So everything on all of these vertices is white. The vertex color has been set to white through the color attribute. It's even white now in object mode. So if we go back to object mode, it's also white. So behind the scenes, something happened and it was adding that color attribute node when we went to vertex paint mode. And we'll use the what they use in the ASOBO SDK as 0 to 1 is the values that you have for the individual channels. Now disconnect the green and the blue links between the separator and the combiner. And since we have a vertex color connected to the red channel with the value of 1 is pushed through, and the green and the blue are both 0 as shown on the combiner. We assume that the red channel is set to 1 because it shows red, and we will use the 0 to 1 as the way the values are shown in the SDK. So we'll talk 0 meaning off, 1 meaning full. And the red channel is the scratches, so let's vertex paint red to the mesh. But wait, it's already red. Since the red channel is set to 1, the full red means that the scratches are already going to show. We have to turn these off. Okay, we need to start with black colors for RGB, so RGB has to be 0, 0, 0. And the alpha also has to be 0. It's easier to add colors than to subtract colors. But we can use both methods, and we will later. So let's connect the green and the blue back. The green channel and the blue channel. And we have white again. We will remove the red, green, and the blue so that the details will not show. How do we do that? We vertex paint with the brush blending mode set to subtract. So the brush blending mode, I'd love to say that, set to subtract. And we'll paint all the colors, and if you paint with white, you're affecting all 3 channels. So the color white, which is hex FF, 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 is all white. With the brush blending mode set to subtract and adjusting the radius of my brush to encompass the entire windshield, if we click, we have removed or subtracted white, so white has turned to black. And we've completely painted the windshield mesh, vertex painted it black. Now let's disconnect the link on the green and the blue. And you'll notice it's still black because the red channel is 0. There is no red channel, there is no green, and there is no blue. It stays black. And with the brush blending set to the color red this time, hex FF0000, we're going to color red with the strength set to 1 and with the mode set to add this time. So we're going to add the color red. So let's paint the color red on some of these dots. I'm going to say on the left side. So let's paint away. There, we painted red on those dots. Well, the same as we did above, but with green this time. So change the color to green, 00FF00. It remains as add, small radius, strength, and let's do the middle. Oh, first of all, I forgot that we're only seeing red here. That's why when I'm trying to paint, nothing appears. But let's add the green channel and let's remove the red one. So we know that we're only going to paint green this time. So that's what I did. I already painted green. I could paint the final set over here, green also. And finally, let's do the blue. We'll do the same as we just did in the last two. I will do it in blue this time. So change the color to blue, 0000FF. It's now blue. It's going to be add, strength 1, and we shall paint. But this time I'll remember to add the blue channel. As you can see, since we've made the red and the green 0, and currently the blue is also 0, we're back to black. But let's do the right side of the windshield. We shall paint them blue. So we painted the entire windshield now, the individual colors. Red, green, blue. Let's go back into object mode here and reconnect the main BSDF node back on. So that we no longer have vertex colors. We have a representation of the windshield as transparent. We no longer see the vertex colors. You may see some of the detailed textures show the letters that I provided before. And I just want to note that you do not see the actual vertex painting. Your windshield is not red, green, and blue, it's transparent. The vertex colors are used in the sim code to provide the functionality of showing and not showing those particular textures. Blender cannot do what the sim does. So I can't turn the frost on and off here in Blender. You will be back and forth adjusting these things to suit your requirements for that windshield material. So you'll be adding color, you'll be subtracting vertex colors, you'll be adding alphas, subtracting alphas, and we'll get into that later. I've exported the test aircraft and built it in the sim, and here's what we get. You can notice that the scratches, the SIFR on the left side here, the SIFB or the fingerprints are on the right side, and the secondary alpha channel is only appearing in the middle now, where we had the green. So we had the red on the one side, the blue on the other side, we had green in the middle, and that's what we get. So we have successfully masked out the three textures, and if we add some ice, we still have the entire windshield full of ice. And that kind of makes sense because we didn't do the Vertex Alpha yet. And from the SDK, the Vertex Alpha does the icing effect. Vertex R does the scratchers, the Vertex B does the fingerprints, and the G part does the secondary alpha. So if we take that away, and let's reconnect our BSDF with all three channels. Then if we remove the vertex colors, transparent, everything is as expected. So there's one other path that can be used, and that's the Vertex Alpha path. Vertex Alpha will modify how much ice shows on the windshield. So let's defrost part of the windshield. Remove all the colors using the brush blend mode subtract at the beginning. However, this removes the alpha at the same time. By the way, adding the colors back also added the alpha. So that's how we get alpha back into the system. You saw that icing still appears when I showed you the test plane. To see the alpha, connect the alpha path from the alpha combiner to the BSDF that we have. So we will replace our color path with the alpha path now, and then we will connect that to the material. And you'll note that our alpha color is white, meaning that the entire windshield has an alpha of 1. Or, in terms of the icing is there on the entire windshield. Now we're going to paint and unpaint Vertex Alpha. It's similar to the RGB, but instead of a color, we'll use a brush blend mode of Erase Alpha. So we'll go into Vertex Paint mode, still white. We'll go into Erase Alpha as the mode we're going to use, and the color will make completely white. So we're going to erase the alpha on certain parts of the windshield, which means we're going to turn the value from a 1 to a 0. So I'm just going to do like I assume a defrost would do, is the center part of the windshield. Maybe it won't be entirely like that. Let's add some alpha back in. I'm going to add some alpha here, and here, and here, and here. We'll leave a little bit like that. So when we're painting alpha, we're basically going to try to erase the amount of transparency or add transparency. If we're adding alpha, the black turns to white. If we're erasing alpha, the white turns to black. Well, let's have a look at what happened to the colors. Nothing. So they're two separate things. The alpha did not affect the vertex colors. Similarly, the vertex colors don't affect the alpha. I've exported my test plane and I've rebuilt it in the sim. Let's see how it looks. Okay, not much change there. We have the secondary alpha in the middle. We have the blue fingerprints on the right side. On the left side, we have the scratches, our red channel. Let's add some ice. Look at that. We now have the ice and defrost where we painted in our alpha. So we have the white here where the alpha is 1, and we had the black here where the alpha is 0. So we painted it in. What has it done to any of the other parts? We still have the secondary alpha in the middle. We still have some fingerprints on one side or the other, and we have the scratches on the other side. So we've allowed our aircraft to have some kind of defrost mechanism on the windshield. So let's do some modifications now. Let's just make some changes to the Vertex colors. We'll reconnect our Vertex color path so we can see them. Red, green, blue. We're going to add and subtract some colors. Go into Vertex paint mode. We're going to say, let's do the red channel first. So let's disconnect so that we only have the red. Change our color to red, FF0000, only red, and we're going to add more red. So if we add more red, let's put it, I don't know, up here. Let's just add some red there. Let's add some other color. Let's add green, 00FF00. Make sure that we're showing the green and not showing the red. Oh, there's lots of green here. Let's just add a tiny smidge over here. But let's erase some of the green that we have. Let us subtract it. And I'm going to subtract some green in this spot. Interesting. Make a hole in the green channel. And let's modify the blue 0000FF. Make it blue and only show the blue channel. Oops. That's blue. Let's add some more blue, or add it. Yep, so change that. Add some blue over here. We want more fingerprints on this side. We want a fingerprint in the corner. And let's do the alpha path. Okay. Remember what happens when we add colors? We also add alpha. We've messed up our entire alpha. We have to redo our alpha. So let's erase alpha where we had it before. And let's add an alpha to a spot over here. And there. We'll make it a little bit different this time. Now, let's play some more. Erase the alpha here. Let's export it and see what we get. So I'm going to export and rebuild. Just remember to reset your connection Vertex colors. So let's see what we got. You'll notice a few slight differences. We have the SA over here. We have some fingerprints. No, we didn't quite get that information, but it looks a little bit different. Okay, and if we add the icing effect, and it looks like that in the sim. Not bad. So I hope this has helped you to understand how to use Vertex paint. If we look at all three colors, we get a rainbow of information. So when we have mixing of blues and reds and greens and yellows, we get all those different vertex colors. Here it looks like we have a void of no green, no blue, and no red. If you read through the SDK documentation, you'll see that most of the other materials use just Vertex Alpha, so you only have to worry about one path. It makes it just that much better. So good luck and see you next time.